In aviation, altitude can be measured as shown in several different ways. The height is either from the average sea level, also known as the mean sea level, or from the ground level, also known above the ground level. Airplanes can find their altitude by using air pressure. The air gets tinier, or thinner as the height gets higher, because there is less air pushing down on it from above. This pressure can be measured, and this can be converted into height above sea level. And the instrument for measuring altitude is the altimeter. I repeat, the instrument used in measuring altitude is known as the altimeter, that is altitude and meter. And the common pressure altimeter is a type of barometer with a dial showing distance, that is feet or meters, instead of atmospheric pressure. And in aviation, there are several types of aviation altitude. These include indicated altitude, true altitude, absolute altitude, height, pressure altitude, density altitude, and so on. Now, I will talk about the effects of height on humans. Altitude above 1,500 meters, that is converted into feet is 4,900, starts to affect humans because humans cannot live in a very high altitude above 5,500 to 6,000 meters, converted into 18,000 to 19,700 feet above the ground level. Atmospheric pressure decreases at high altitude. This affects humans because there is less oxygen to breathe at that very height, and this can cause illnesses such as altitude sickness, high altitude pulmonary, and also that is fluid in the lungs, and also high altitude cerebral edema, fluid in the brain, causing headache and confusion. But in all this, there is high altitude adaptation in humans. It is an instance of evolutionary modification in certain human populations. These include those of Tibets in Asia, the Andes of Americas, and the Ethiopians in Africa, who have acquired the ability to survive at altitude above 2,500 meters. This adaptation means irreversible. That is, it is a long-term physiological response to high altitude environment associated with their hereditary behavior and genetic changes, while the rest of the human population will suffer serious health consequences. That is, humans that are yet to adapt to such high altitude, and the indigenous of these inhabitants of this region thrive well in the highest part of the world. This evolutionary research began with the first scientific investigation of high altitude adaptation by humans, which was first done by A. Roberto from the University of Michigan in the late 1960s. This research has been carried out by A. Roberto of Michigan, University of Michigan, alongside Paul T. Baker of Penn State University. And in their research, they also conducted a considerable amount of research into humans adapting to high level of altitude. And in conclusion, high altitude locations are usually much colder than areas closer to the sea level. This is due to the low air pressure, that is, the air expands as it rises, and the fewer gas molecules is found, and these include nitrogen, oxygen and carbon dioxide, they have fewer chances to bump into each other.